Happy Earth Day, everybody. Welcome back to Brume Tower. Due to some requests in the thread and elsewhere, I have decided to use some of my Twinkling Titanite reserves to upgrade the Santier Spear. It is now +5 and infused with the Raw enchantment. It does a lot of damage. It also has unlimited durability, so I'm really quite into it, to be honest. Now, it occurs to me that I did forget to get something last time we were here. Bothered as we were by assassins and curses. There's 2 bonfire aesthetics in the chest, and there is, of course, also the Elan Greatbow down there, but really, it's not something I need to go out of my way to pick up when I already have one. I have like 2. If you're interested in using a Greatbow in your playthrough, and you don't necessarily feel like you want to go around and grind the Elan Knight captains, then simply coming here early and grabbing that is a viable option, although it's kind of dangerous since you have to go into the curse zone. Now, today we're not going to make a whole lot of forward progress. Instead, we're going to explore more of the tower. Now that all the mechanisms are working, thanks to putting the Scorching Iron Scepter in its receptacle, a great deal of hidden areas are now open to us. Before we go much of anywhere, though, we do need to grab a key. However, it won't be easy. We saw this area earlier when we were crossing over to Meldron's tower. There are plenty of valuables hidden around in the dust statues and just in general, but to get them we need to fight through an Iron Warrior. Now, the little guys with barrels can be of great help during this fight. You can lure the Iron Warrior in here, and then try and finagle the barrel guys into the fire jets, or simply shoot them with fire yourself. And it's a little finicky, so I prefer to do it the old-fashioned way. Now here's where the real difficulty comes in. There's more than one. This variety is wielding not one of the giant hammers, but a bladed mace kind of thing that can inflict bleeding. It's pretty nasty. And it's not just a little bit of bleeding. An enterprising adventurer could, well, first they could get hit in the head with a mace, and then they could try to simply knock the warrior off of the platform. It would be difficult because they have a lot of poise, but it's certainly not impossible. personally have a lot of trouble with these guys. I'm not sure if it's because they're especially difficult or I just have a bit of a mental block with them, but the magma that spills from their shoulders really hurts my game plan. The Sentier Spear is also only so-so at taking them out. It does a lot of damage, but the Twin Blade animation sort of locks you in place for a good while, which is not necessarily where you really want to be when you're fighting such large and powerful enemies. It worked out okay, simply because, like I said, it does a lot of damage, but I think that overall the Helix Halberd is probably better for taking them on, because you can get similar amounts of damage with one swipe if you have good positioning. This fight can be pretty nightmarish if you simply charge out with reckless abandon, because you'll summon all three of them. At which case you basically have no choice but to try and utilize the barrel guys. There are a bunch of goodies hidden around here, as well as the tower key, which was our main thing that we wanted. The Iron Warriors can also sometimes drop Titanite slabs, which is always welcome. With our newfound key, we can open this door. The notes here seem somewhat ominous. It also gives us a really nice view of the bottom part of the tower, which is sort of eerie in a way. Our destination is eventually down there, but we're not going there for quite some time yet. Instead, the locked door leads us to the Iron Passage, which is a special co-op area. I won't be taking it on just yet, but I do want the bonfire available just for future reference. Now that we've explored a little bit below, we can explore even more above. There are actually a great deal of areas that we simply could not access before we had activated all of the lifts and stuff. Now, one particularly deviously hidden secret is in this elevator shaft. It was sort of difficult to hear with the elevator noises, but there was in fact a secret door there that you sort of have to mush your face up against and mash A. The reward for doing so is the hollow skin. Now, it says that it provides curse resistance. However, that's slightly an understatement. The hollow skin mask provides 1000 curse resistance. You are completely immune to the curse effect while you're wearing this. As such, it is a perfectly viable strategy to simply wait to do Maldron's Tower until you have this item. Grotesque as it looks. Now, a word of warning. Fully exploring the tower is sometimes hazardous and sometimes baffling, because there is pretty much the ever-present danger of big drop. We might actually remember this room from before. It's on the other side of a gate that we were unable to pass earlier. The twin blade form makes pretty short work of the possessed armors. You can move around the flame spouts by hitting that thing, but I haven't found much of a use for it, to be honest. If you're extremely quick, you might be able to get it so that you can simply pass through when the flames are not going in this area, but to be perfectly honest, it's pretty easy just to run through them and take minimal damage. Alright, I'll praise the sun this time, because we've got such a nice view. Our reward for exploring this area is the Simpleton's Ring. This is a pretty cool ring that's sort of useless in player versus environment play, but it's actually really useful in PvP. It essentially makes you invisible while you roll. It's not immensely powerful, but used properly, it can be really useful when sort of crossing people up and confusing them in PvP. It also it looks really cool. Now, I will return to this area later. Quite a bit later, actually. Probably not for quite a few videos now. There's a reason for that, and it will be explained, so don't worry. I'm not just skipping things for the sake of it. And this little alcove is a Pilgrim's Spontoon, a very unique weapon. It has the attack pattern of a spear. However, it can also be used as a catalyst for sorceries and hexes. It also looks kind of neat. Unfortunately, it requires a whopping 30 intelligence and 30 faith to use, so it's way beyond our reach for now. It's at this point that I think I decide that, dealing with all this junk, it might be time. It might be time for a little bit of insurance, because looking down there made me a little paranoid. I'm pretty sure in the next little bit I equip a life ring. Ring of life protection, I mean. Or maybe I just get lost for a minute. Yeah, I'm pretty sure I just get lost for a minute. This area of Brume Tower is actually quite confusing with all the lifts and semi-accessible ledges and stuff. Fortunately, I finally find where I need to go. If you make one side trip in your trip through Brume Tower, this should probably be it. They're all pretty valuable, but this one especially so for sort of pragmatic reasons. Much like in the caged area from before, you can hit the bullheads and have them go sailing by. It creates a pretty useful way to clear out the tough enemies, because they're usually found by barrel guys. That's the official name, by the way, barrel guy. Now, however, your first instinct here might be to just send this on its merry way. However, there is a different use for it that requires a bit of patience, luck, and tolerance for finicky, weird stuff. Your goal is to get one of the barrel guys to shamble on over towards that statue. Now, I sort of fucked up here because the ultimate goal is to have the barrel guy explode next to the wall, but I was positioned in just such a way that the barrel holder went right towards the statue instead of the wall, and thus the wall was not blown up to reveal secret treasures. So I'm left with little alternative but to try and take on everything the old-fashioned way, and then promptly panic and lose my shit. Guess who forgot that there was a death trap there? It was me. So that was a little embarrassing. It usually doesn't go quite so poorly, because you can simply, once you've blown up the wall, send the bull statue along its track and take out most of those enemies before they become a threat. No such luck for me. I will simply have to persevere. There are a number of side paths we still haven't explored, but I would like to recover my souls before we continue. And just make sure that this side area gets out of the way, because it's probably the most important one. To admit, I'm a little perplexed why that guy didn't explode. Maybe because I was looking directly at him? Maybe he's some sort of subatomic particle in barrel form? Either way, it doesn't really matter. The flame spitter pretty much weakened this guy to the point where he's no problem anyway. Even though they're very resistant to fire, a continuous gout of flame like that it's pretty damaging no matter who you are. Also, when trying to get past them, don't get impatient. Wait for them to stop spewing, then roll by. Now, this time, I have the presence of mind to position myself a bit more carefully. And I am rewarded for my prescience by getting hit by fire. The wall also blows open, so mission accomplished, more or less. Sending the bull statue on its merry way will also clear the way a little bit. Our reward for that puzzle is the Dispelling Ring +1. We haven't actually gotten the base form in the main game. At least I don't believe so. It increases all resistances to elemental damage by a pretty good amount. Not as much as the individual quartz rings. That would be sort of broken, but the +1 ring is really strong. Just like, in terms of sheer numbers, it gives you the most resistances, I think, out of anything. There's a number of these guys, but they're all fairly severely weakened. This time I decided to remember that there was flame there and simply dash through it before it could kill me. In doing so, I create an effective barrier between me and the enemies that largely takes care of my problem for me. Praise the sun. The sun is made of fire, right? With the way finally clear, we can collect our just reward. This chest contains another precious 4 smelter wedges. We will be needing those soon enough. You start with 6, and you get another 4 here. However, I can tell you that there are a total of 12 Nadalia soul fragments, so that leaves a bit of a problem. Where do we get the last 2? All will be revealed in time. Before that, however, it's time to really put our new hollow skin to the test. By unlocking this door with the tower key, we have access to another curse area. This one is a great deal easier than the other because there is no Maldron fucking things up. It's still not a joke, though. The ashen buff soldiers are quite devastating if you let them get you. And they take a lot of punishment simply because they have such enhanced defense. Fortunately, unlike the possessed armors, they are not immortal. So if you're simply persistent and careful, you can remove them as threats before they really get the better of you. One thing that the hollow skin will not really make better about this area is that it's still really dark. It's kind of difficult to see in here. You can explore more or less without ramifications, but it would be nice if there was some sort of light source. I'm not even sure if a torch actually helps. I've never tried it. You can sort of abuse a quirk in the lighting engine by sort of standing in that doorway leading outside where the bonfire is, because that gives off quite a bit of light, and it sort of shines in. But it won't do that if you look directly at it. It's sort of a camera. I don't want to call it a glitch or an exploit, but it's an eccentricity, I guess. The twin blade stance of the Santier Spear is really quite powerful for taking out the Ashen Soldiers. I keep saying that. I don't know why. The Ashen Soldiers. The source of the curse is in here, another Ashen Idol. Before we deal with the possessed armor, we should probably deal with this. Without its Ashen buff, and completely vulnerable to the fury of a bunch of twin blade strikes, they fall pretty easily. And now that we're done with cursed areas, I'm going to put my old helmet back on, because that thing was sort of grody. In addition to the soul fragment, there is another unique treasure down here. the fire snake pyromancy, which is really cool and quite powerful. I'll show that off a bit later when we aren't in an area where literally everything resists fire. Our next order of business is actually all the way back at the top of the tower. I'm not quite sure what that means, but this is actually where I put on the life protection ring because this is where the real platforming starts. This is only accessible once you get the lifts moving, otherwise there's no way to get over here. The baneful bird ring is actually quite strong for certain kinds of characters, if I can find it. That's the description of the dispelling ring, by the way. Apparently a man from the lost land of Alophus made it. I wonder who that could be. There it is. The baneful bird ring. Reduces stamina loss when blocking. Can make you quite the tank if you invest into, say, great shields. We also get a little bit more lore on Brume, the traitor. We have his great shield as well. Evidently, back in the day, he used to be an agile swordsman, but after Vistalt sort of put the kibosh on that by being huge and menacing, he decided to reinvent himself. Now, I'm not sure that if his great shield was from his agile swordsman phase or afterwards. It might seem sort of counterintuitive for him to be using a great shield while he was agile, but when we consider the fact that Vistalt was enormous, if Brume was of similar stature, then perhaps he simply used a great shield like we would use a parrying shield. It didn't have 100% physical block either way. Anyway, either way. Words. Explosions. I'm not quite sure why I decided to take the scenic route instead of just warping, but here we are. I guess I just considered that there wasn't enough screwing around in this video. I guess it's never a waste of time when more things blow up. Here we are. Back more or less where we need to be. There are a couple more places to explore. Also, there's a strange geography bug here where sometimes your character will just get hung up on that tiny little step outside that bonfire. I'm not entirely sure what causes it, but it's annoying. I considered changing my rings briefly, but it's a good thing that I didn't. Because I'm going to attempt to get in that little caged area below. And that's not exactly easy. There's enough room between you and the elevator and the cage that it's quite conceivable that you'll simply fall to your death. There's also not a whole lot of window to get in there, so there's also a good chance that that will happen. I'll never understand why they insist on putting these platforming puzzles in when they don't really have an engine that allows for it. Huh, a crystal lizard! Oh. Asshole. I'll get that later. Our reward, along with the crystal lizard that is now at the bottom of the pit, are 2 bright bugs. Bright bugs are rare consumable items that greatly increase your attack power when you consume them. Ow. I've never actually used one myself, so I'm not entirely sure the extent of how much they affect you, but presuming that they cost a lot of souls to buy, Melentia has a couple, and that they're fairly rare in the world, then I'm assuming it's a pretty significant effect. With that out of the way, there's one last area we need to explore. It's another area that requires the tower key. So, if you're exploring this area, I would recommend you pick that up as soon as possible because it opens up a lot of doors. In this area, we will find the Dark Spirit Prowler's invasion. Prowlers looks an awful lot like the Mad Warrior from the Bell Tower. However, it's a much more difficult fight because the Ashen Idol in the background will heal him with warmth and won't heal us, so that's gotta go. And so do we, evidently. That's pretty fucking rude, if you ask me. Like, shit. Alright, let's take it from the top. It was foolish of me to give him a fair chance. I should have cut off the source of his unearthly power right then and there, but I hesitated and then I got stabbed in the back. Provided I make a beeline for it, I should be able to disable the idol before he even really has a chance to spawn in. It really bugs me that these elevators are out of sync. It just means that you have to wait some more. Alright. Let's try this one again. Alright, once you actually take out the wedge, you are fairly firmly in invincibility frame territory. Without his free heals, Prowler's becomes quite a bit more manageable. He's still quite powerful, and his Berserker Blade Katana is quite the menace. However, like most things, he is quite vulnerable to being stun-locked by the Santier Spear Twin Blade stance. Oddly enough, we don't have the Invader Banished message. The reason for that is there's more of them. Hence why it's Prowlers and not Prowler. Not only are there more of them, they also have bow and arrows. It's an extremely difficult fight to take on one on four. So, I have found that the best recourse for handling this is to simply take the elevator back down and then come back up. This sort of confuses their AI. And splits them up a little bit. Once they're in groups of 1 or 2, they're a lot easier to manage. Especially with a weapon as powerful as this. Another one of those. It'd be nice if I'd gotten a different set of the piece of the set. Sorry. Either way, isolating them makes the fight much more manageable. Taking them on 4 at once is almost impossible. I don't think I've ever successfully done it. It's also worth noting that the multiple Prowlers are a good deal weaker in terms of HP and attack power than the first one was. Once you take out all 5, you vanquish the Dark Spirit and they will no longer respawn. Bit of an odd statue, but I guess the Iron Bull is a bit of a motif of the Iron King. Past the Prowlers is this rather impressive looking piece of armor that we saw all the way back at the top through a window. But it doesn't appear to do anything. Alas, nothing happened. Maybe next time something will happen. Until then,